18-year-old student Jennifer Ravgiela is suing her ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old fast food worker Raymond Roberts, for the return of money meant for her prom, an unpaid loan, and the return of property. Raymond is countersuing for a false restraining order.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 30 on the matter. Okay, Your Honor, this is case number 30 in the matter of Ravgiela versus Roberts.
Thank you.
Get a little tongue-tied now and then. The parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
What's your first name?
Jennifer.
How old are you, Jennifer?
I'm 18. I just turned 18 3 days ago.
Order.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How old are you, Mr. Roberts?
23.
What's your first name?
Raymond.
Jennifer, Raymond was your boyfriend.
Yep.
You claim he owes you some money. Not a whole lot of money. $300 some odd.
Yep.
You said he owes you the money for the following 2 items. You gave him $100 in which to put down as a deposit for the limousine for your senior prom.
That's right.
And you had an argument, and he kept the money, and he didn't take you to the prom. And you acknowledge that you kept the $100.
I guess I did.
And then you say that over the course of your relationship, you sold candy for school, and he took your candy money. And about that, Mr. Roberts says, she took me out for dinner, and we went places together.
That's not true.
I'm just telling you what he says. That's his answer. Then you say that he came to your house when you weren't home with a police officer and took a Christmas gift that he had bought you.
That's right.
Which was?
Supposedly it was a stereo. I did buy a stereo, but it was not a gift.
A stereo that was in her house.
A stereo that was at her house.
And you took that and you want the value of that back, or the stereo back.
Yep.
You say it was a Christmas gift.
Yep, it was.
Now, Raymond says that you owed him money for a Sprint bill.
That's not true.
Just telling you what he says. And that he merely was collecting on that. That's what the $100 was for?
Yep,
as well as the stereo.
The stereo, no. The stereo was mine. I was taking it back.
And Raymond is counterclaiming, he said, because you and your mother sort of overreacted to a little argument you were having and had him arrested for kidnapping you.
He was never arrested.
Shh. And he was forced to defend these charges temporarily, right?
Right.
How old was she when you started to date her, Raymond?
17.
And how old were you?
At the time, I was 22.
Not terrible, not terrific. What did she owe you money for?
She owes me money for the Sprint bill for the 2 months.
Now, how is it that you're paying her Sprint bill?
I have 2 phones, and I let her use one of my other phones. And we agreed that...
Just a minute. You got a phone for yourself.
Yes, I've got
And
a
you
phone.
gave her a phone.
Yes, under my name.
And when did you do that? How long ago?
I think it might have been sometime in October. I might have given her the phone, September, October.
She was 17.
Correct.
And you had an agreement with her.
Yes.
And what was your agreement?
That I would split the bill in half. I'd pay my half, she'd pay her half.
That's not right.
So what you're telling me is you had a verbal contract with her.
Correct.
You can't.
Can't.
Right. She's not old enough. She's not old enough to make that contract. She has to be 18 in order to make a contract that's valid and binding. So, Raymond, that's one of the downsides of dating a younger woman.
I'm learning that now.
So she owes you diddly.
Okay.
So let's start with, you owe her $100 for the limousine.
Okay.
So $100, Jennifer, is on your side.
Yep.
Now, I don't want to hear about the candy money. I want you to forget the candy money. If you were dumb enough to give him candy money or to spend candy money, I don't want to hear about it. Yes, you want to say something? It sounded like you were winning the candy money.
No, she still has belongings of mine at her house.
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
We are now on the stereo.
All right.
That she says was a Christmas present, and you said was just yours.
This is fine.
When did you get the stereo?
Christmas Eve was put in my house, and my mom was actually there. And he actually said to her, you know, this is a Christmas gift. I bought it for her.
And it was in your house starting Christmas time?
Yep.
When did you take it out of the house?
I think it was like March.
So, December to January, January to February, February to March. It was in her house for 3 months.
Correct.
Who do you live with?
My grandparents.
Do you have your own room?
Yes.
You have a stereo?
No.
So if you bought the stereo in December, I assume that that's what the receipt says, that it was purchased in December?
Correct.
What date in December?
The 17th, which she was with me.
If it was purchased in December and you don't have a stereo in your room, why didn't you take it to your house?
I was letting her use it.
Baloney. Let me see the bill. You have the perks of a younger woman, you have to have the plagues of a younger woman. Plague is she's not old enough to make a contract. Okay, so this whole thing cost $189?
Correct.
Where's the stereo now?
At my house.
In your?
In my room.
In your room?
In my room.
Where it would have been from the very beginning if it was bought for you. Now, a couple of other questions just for my own information, sir. What did Jennifer get you for Christmas?
Electric shaver and a couple of shirts.
A couple of shirts?
Yes.
What did you get for Jennifer for Christmas? See what I mean? Got where I'm going?
Yeah.
Raymond? Got where I'm going?
Yes, I do.
Good. So we have $289 on your side, because now Raymond gets it. Right, Raymond?
Yes.
Didn't think fast enough.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get to your counterclaim.
Okay.
You had an argument in the car.
Correct.
What date?
March 5th to be exact.
And the argument was about your being cheap?
If you want to put it that way.
What?
If you want to put it that way.
Well, that's what it was about. You're being cheap. You're mooching off her. I mean, I read the complaint.
No, I wasn't mooching off her. I was just asking her for, you know, simple money for the bill. That's all.
That's what she was complaining. Don't play with paper around me. So you're having the argument in the car.
Correct.
And what happened?
We got in a major argument about money, both the Sprint bill and everything. And she said, oh, I'm not going to pay for the bill. I don't have to pay for the bill. You know, I was like, well, you used the phone. You know, I think you should be responsible for the charge if you're going to use the phone. And she said no, and I said, fine. You want to be that way towards me? I will take the limo money, and I'll use that limo money to cover your part of the bill since you want to pay me the money. And we'll take it from there. It'll be fine. Well, from that point on, she decided to call her mother and say I was threatening her, made a huge big deal out of everything. She said, bring me home, bring me home, bring me home. I said, fine, I'll bring you home. When she told me she wasn't going to pay the bill, when she was on the phone with her mother, I actually called Sprint, and I had the phone shut off right then and there. And I guess that's when her mother panicked and decided to call the state police and the cops, and I had the cops.
That was really stupid of you, Raymond.
Yeah.
Girl is talking to her mother,
Yeah.
right? So her mother knows she's safe, she's well. You pick up your cell phone, and you call Sprint, and you say, cut off the other number?
If that was my phone,
I was.
how can you shut it off?
Listen, don't speak.
I
I'm
was
not talking to you.
All right.
I was not expecting them to shut off right then and there, because I didn't think they could shut off.
What
the
did you
phone with
say to
phone
them
service.
to have them shut it off right then and there?
I asked them if they could
curious.
shut off the service, and no, basically you can't have incoming or outgoing calls.
And they said, okay?
They said fine. I didn't think they could do it during a phone call. My mistake.
Well, you found out that they could.
Yeah, I did the hard way.
Tell me what happened. Were you arrested? Were you
No, I
charged with anything?
No, I was not arrested.
Well, then what happened? So
Just
what
the
do you...
embarrassment of a false restraining order because
Okay, so they took out a restraining order against you?
took out a restraining order on me a couple days later.
You have a copy of the allegations that you made in the restraining order? Raymond,
Yes,
you ever been arrested before?
a long time ago.
How long ago?
Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Nothing since.
Nothing.
You work? You have
Yes, I
a
work.
nice job?
Decent job.
What do you do?
Actually, I'm training to be a manager at McDonald's right now.
So you're working at McDonald's?
Correct.
Okay. You don't look like a bad guy, Raymond. You don't look like you have a bad temper. Does he have a bad temper?
Oh, yes.
Never touched you, did he?
No.
You have a bad temper?
No.
Huh?
No?
She have a bad temper?
She has her moments. she has her moments
Yeah.
that she can
When I'm
flip
with
out.
you.
Oh.
Well, either you have
Well,
a
hey.
temper or you don't have a temper. You understand? Daughter sometimes has a temper?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Do you think you overreacted to this a little bit?
I don't. I was scared if he shut off my cell phone.
Well, see, Raymond, that was your mistake. Do you understand?
Yes.
That was really your mistake. Aside from the fact that when this happened, she was 17. Dating a minor is an issue. I can imagine how her mother felt. She's talking to her daughter. Her daughter's 17-year-old idiot who's in the car, is having a fight about whatever. And all of a sudden, no, don't speak. And all of a sudden, that conversation is interrupted and she can't get back to her daughter. One day you'll have a daughter. You will understand what that must feel like. You understand?
Yes.
The charges were dropped on this protective order?
Yeah. 2 weeks later, on the date that we're supposed to, you know, see if it was going to get extended or not, it got dropped.
Right. Because everybody
because-
got cooler. Good. Okay. So, Raymond, next time you'll be smarter. Next time. Pick on somebody your own age, you'll be much happier. Look at their birth certificate, make sure that they're 18 or over before you make a contract with them. Understood?
Understood.
Well, you get $289, $100 for the limo, $189 for his Christmas present that he took back. You, on your counterclaim, get nothing but a good lesson. All right? Thank you very much. Two nice people. Move on with your life. Have a happy life.
Oh, he's excused. You may step out.
He was a very controlling guy, and I just figured put it on national television to see the whole world how controlling he is.
It's okay. It sounds fair. My mistake.
I didn't like him from the beginning because she was only 17.
My mother doesn't know how to stay out of things.
When he wanted her to go somewhere, she had to do it.
She's always trying to tell me what to do.
If he didn't want her to go, she couldn't do it.
Not seeing a 23-year-old again.
I didn't like it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Sarah Borden versus Taylor Marquez. Step forward, please.
19-year-old barista Devin Serra and her boyfriend, Michael Borden, are suing their former roommates, 20-year-old cashier Angela Marquez and her boyfriend, Gary Taylor, for breaking a lease. Angela says she moved out because she was scared to live with Devin.
The two of you decided to lease an apartment with the two of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Leased the apartment when?
December 11th in 2004.
Moved in when?
That same day.
That was fast. How big an apartment?
It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath.
You're not married?
No.
You're not married?
No,
You're going to have a baby?
Yes.
Well, wonderful. Everything's right. You're all friends, right?
Yes.
When did you move out?
January 28th, 2005.
Okay, and you want 3 months' rent from them
Yes.
because you're stuck with the lease.
Yeah.
And you also say that when they moved out, they took some property that didn't belong to
Yes,
them.
they did.
You'll tell me about that in a minute. And you say you had to move out because she threatened you, and they both told you to go, and you just went. And you couldn't be stressed out because you're pregnant.
Yes, Your Honor.
How old are you?
20.
How old are you?
I'm 20, Your Honor.
Do you have a job?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you work at?
I'm a firefighter.
And you?
Cashier.
Two 20-year-olds having a baby? That would make me nervous.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She grabs the salt and the pepper, she throws it against the wall. She comes after me, in my face, picking up her hands like she was going to come after me and hit me.
Oy, 20 years old and you're having a child.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Devin Serra and her boyfriend Michael Borden claim former roommates Angela Marquez and her boyfriend Gary Taylor owe for breaking a lease.
Okay. Are you still living in the apartment?
Yes, we are.
Do you have new roommates?
Not yet.
How much is the rent?
$865 a month.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a barista.
A what?
A barista.
What's a barista?
I work at Starbucks. Cashier, make drinks.
Yeah, they make burritos, I think.
No, barista. No, really, seriously.
A
what's
barista, yeah.
Is that what it's called, a barista?
Yes.
So you work at Starbucks full-time?
Part-time.
What else do you do?
I'm a student.
How much do you make from working as a barista?
I make $7.20 an hour.
How much do you take home every week?
Every 2 weeks, I make about $200.
And that's what you support yourself on?
Myself, yeah.
And what about you?
Seasonal firefighter.
Seasonal
Seasonal
firefighter.
firefighter.
What does that mean?
Work with the Forest Service, so I wildland firefighting, just with the summer.
What do you do the rest of the time?
Right now, I'm working as an athletic trainer. With the
You
high school.
train people individually or what?
It's with the high school.
How much do you make?
It's $12.66 an hour, and I bring home about $2,000, a little over $2,000 a month.
Okay, so you can afford the rent.
Yes.
Great. You're going to stay in this apartment?
Yes.
Why don't you sign off on the lease?
We did, Your Honor. We tried.
No, you either did or you tried.
We did.
You did
We-
sign off
yes.
on the lease.
My fiance had
Let me
gone to the manager's office and asked for a release form. And we showed it to them, and they said they weren't going to sign us off if we didn't pay the February rent.
You left there because of your own safety, is that right?
Yes.
You had security deposit.
Yes, Your Honor.
How much security deposit did you put down?
250.
That's for both of you, was the security deposit?
It was actually $450, but in half, it was about $225 each on deposit from each couple.
From each couple?
From each couple.
Okay. You moved out January 28th. Why shouldn't you be responsible for February's rent? They certainly couldn't find somebody else in 2 days to rent the apartment.
Because January, I would say the 21st, on January is a Sunday. I had like the last straw with them. I was like in a mood that I couldn't talk to them. I didn't want to just go out there and say stuff. And so finally I told Mike if we could talk. And he said, sure, meet us for dinner here at the house and we'll talk. So we talked about it. We sat there. I went first, and I told her how I felt, and everybody. Then she went, and she said how she felt and whatnot. Well, all of a sudden, she went crazy. She went out of this world. She pulled out of her chair. She started screaming and saying, I'm not happy that you're pregnant. It's not fair that you're pregnant. I had an abortion. I did this and this and this and that. And she thought, it's my fault that I brought you together, and you're pregnant. You're going to suffer, and you're this and that. And then she just pulls out of her chair. She grabs the salt and the pepper. She throws it against the wall. She goes back to her room screaming and just going crazy. She comes back out of her room throwing stuff, just hitting walls and whatnot. She comes after me. Like she was this close from me, in my face, picking up her hands like she was going to come after me and hit me. Then
What was she saying to you?
Saying that she couldn't take it anymore. She didn't like living with me and Gary, that she hated the fact that I was pregnant, and she had to see me happy. She didn't want to see me happy. And I was like, okay, don't you want to see me happy?
Oy, 20 years old and you're having a child.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Now, why were you upset?
We were all upset.
I assume you were all upset.
Yeah.
Good. I don't want to be upset.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be upset. Where are you living now?
We're living somewhere else now, in another apartment.
They signed off on the lease on January 25th.
That was the date I got the papers, and
Yeah.
that was the day I wanted all of us to get the signatures so we can get off the lease.
Did you or did you not sign off on the lease?
We did.
Signed it, and they had to sign it. The manager told us, we cannot get you off the lease unless they sign you off because they're still staying there.
Fine. Court will draft an order 5 days from today. Do you all live in the same town?
Yes.
ma'am.
You're all going to meet in the landlord's office, 9 a.m. Sign the release form. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
I am going to award you their share of February's rent because they had an obligation to pay at least 1 month's rent for you to spend that month looking for a new roommate if that's what you wanted to do. I think that that's fair, don't you?
Yes, Your Honor.
When you sign off on the lease, you will also get a check for $250 for your security deposit. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you don't go there 5 days from today, I'm giving the plaintiffs the right to come back and ask for a judgment for the remainder of the lease. And they will take it out of your pay. Do you understand?
Yes,
Yes,
Your
Your
Honor.
Honor.
Do you understand the order?
Yes.
Good. Now, let's get to what property you say they took when they moved out.
When they were moved out, they took a lot of belongings and stuff.
Oh,
when they moved
a
out.
lot of belongings doesn't help me, madam.
They took food, they took
I don't
cleaning
care.
supplies.
Are you kidding me or what? Other than food and cleaning supplies.
That's all they took.
I hope you've replaced them. You don't want the food back, do you?
No.
Good. Okay, you understand the order?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I really
Urban planner Stacy Flynn is suing her former upstairs neighbor, 21-year-old science instructor Jasmine Kivett, for water damage to her apartment. Stacy claims Jasmine overflowed her bathtub.
Now, this is case number 8 on the calendar, the matter of Flynn versus Kivett. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Flynn, how long have you lived in the building where you are currently residing?
I'm not currently residing there any longer, but I lived there for 15 years.
How long have you been out of that building?
1 month.
And how long had Miss Kivett been your upstairs neighbor?
Approximately 1 year.
Did you have any difficulty with her before this incident happened?
Nothing face-to-face, but was always noisy prior to this incident.
Had you ever complained?
No.
And on February 14th, tell me what happened.
On February 14th at 5 p.m., I entered my apartment and discovered that the ceiling and the walls were flowing with steady streams of water. Instantly, I ran to management and asked them if they could assist me in the problem, and informed me that Jasmine Kivett, the resident above me in number 327.
Don't tell me what they said to you. Pronounce your last name?
Kivett.
Miss Kivett, you were home on February 14th.
Yes.
And you're going to tell me that through no fault of your own, the bathtub overflowed.
Yes.
And it was that overflowing bathtub that caused the damage to Miss Flynn's home.
Yes.
Because it was the bathtub's fault.
No, Your Honor.
Well, that's what I read here. It was the bathtub's fault. The bathtub didn't have an appropriate little hole in it. And even though you left the water running, It was the bathtub's fault for not having a hole.
There was no overflow drain.
Overflow drain. I'm not good at those things. So it was the bathtub's fault because it didn't have an overflow drain.
No, Your Honor.
Whose fault was it?
I was bleaching my bathtub, and there were tons of chemicals. The chemicals were so strong, I had to dilute them. So I left the water running, and I just was doing spring cleaning. It was an honest mistake. The water began to overflow. I did what I could to try and remedy the situation. It was an honest mistake, and she handled it in such a way that I had no choice but to refuse to pay her.
You come from California?
Yes.
What do you do?
I work at a company called Mad Science, and I teach in-class workshops and after-school programs.
You look like a nice young lady.
Thank you.
You're not seriously suggesting to me that you're not responsible for the damage to her apartment and to her things.
I understand that what happened was not her fault at all. She could not help the water coming into her apartment, of course, but the way that she handled it, she attacked me in such a manner. She provided me no evidence when she asked me for money. She wouldn't let me into her apartment to assess the damage, and the two people who were able to see the damage told me that it was very minimal. They had dealt with her numerous times, that she was crazy, and I was beginning to think that she was a little crazy because she would yell at me, cuss at me, she would stand on her balcony demanding money.
Well, this happened on February 14th.
Yes.
So now we've acknowledged, Miss Cavett, that you were at fault. You lived in that apartment for a year.
Yes.
You know that the bathtub did not have an
overflow drain.
An overflow drain.
Yes.
This wasn't a surprise bathtub. It didn't sneak it in there,
No.
right, when you weren't looking.
Of course
This
not.
was the same old bathtub that was in there that was dirty because you hadn't been cleaning it all along. So you were bleaching it out and doing other spring cleaning, and you forgot about it.
I knew that the water was diluting the chemicals. It had to. I couldn't just leave the bleach, and it was such a...
Well, if it was diluting the chemicals, the water was
running, of course, yes.
And if the water was running and you didn't check on it often enough, then it was going to overflow
yes.
because it had no...
It had no overflow drain.
Right.
I was under the impression that in the state of California there must be an overflow drain or your plumbing's not up to code.
Okay. All right. There we go. Bert, stand up there, and I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see any of that. So let me understand something. It was the bathtub's fault that it wasn't up to code. Either that or you thought that somehow between the time you started to bleach the tub out and the time it overflowed, it came up to code and somebody snuck in an overflow hole?
No, Your Honor.
So that you knew that there was no place for this water to go if you left the water running except on the floor. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're not talking anymore about liability. We have now, you and I, determined, my dear, that it's not the bathtub's fault that it overflowed.
Of course not.
It's your fault. You were dusting and cleaning and being Martha Stewart and weren't paying attention to what was going on in your bathtub. Now the question is, what are the damages that Miss Flynn, the perfectly innocent bystander to this, suffered as a result of your negligence? Don't laugh at her. Don't smile at her. Just show me the damage.
Well, there was a raw pine dresser. It was in my closet with all of my other clothing, and ended up being completely saturated and soaked. It swelled so bad that I couldn't open any drawers.
Okay.
So I replaced a dresser. There was a wool braided rug that was also damaged.
I assume you took photographs?
Yes, I did.
Can I just see them, please?
Sure.
Good. Now, when did you tell the defendant about the damages and how much they were?
On the day that the incident occurred, I went to her apartment and I confronted her and informed her that there was a serious situation occurring in my apartment and that at some point we were going to have to do a damage assessment. For 2 weeks, I didn't hear one thing from her. So I wrote her a letter informing her that I was expecting her to assume responsibility and that I was willing to give her a break on certain items that were damaged because I understood she was having a difficult time.
Okay. So far, I see a lot of walls. You didn't replace any of the walls.
No.
You didn't repaint or anything.
Right.
They did that. Okay. How much did it cost you to replace the dresser?
$216.
You have a bill?
Yes, I do.
Can I see it, please? And the rug?
Haven't replaced it.
How much did you pay for it?
It was $180.
What happened to the Tiffany lamp?
Water came down on the surface area where I had a coffee table, burned it out, wouldn't work.
Okay. $489 is what your bills are.
Here is a $75 bill to clean my carpet.
Okay, let me take a look at that. Okay. I think that you're responsible for $564 worth of damage to her apartment, including the cost of cleaning carpets. What do you want to show me?
I have a letter in which she states that she bought a rug from Walmart for $39, and now she's charging me for a different one for $200.
In place of the one for $180.
Let me see the letter. So instead of the rug for $180, you replaced it with a rug for $39?
I said that in this letter, if you'll read it, it's stating that I expected her to assume responsibility and that I would give her a break and I was willing to work with her. That arrangement was created in hope that I didn't have to go to court and sue her.
Okay, the items that she originally indicated to you come to $366.
Yes.
Plus a lot of aggravation.
Your Honor, I tried to work with her. I have a phone bill here.
So what did you offer her?
I called her numerous times.
What did you offer her?
She was harassing me, and I asked to see the damage. I couldn't offer her anything without knowing what I was paying for. All I asked for was a mere photograph or to be let into her apartment to see. You know, I apologized for what happened, but I said, can we work together? Can I see what's going on? I can't just blindly hand you money and say, here, I know there was a flood, so here's all my money. All I asked was to see what happened.
Judge Judy, for 2 weeks, I had to try to wrangle her into coming to take damage assessment, into trying to come to my apartment.
What was the
set up
first
an
date
appointment.
on your phone bill? What was the first date that you called her after the flood?
February 22nd.
That's not enough.
That's not before I had her phone
Listen
number.
to me, my dear. You don't need a phone number. You go up to her apartment, write her a note.
I did. I didn't write a note, but I knocked on the door.
Listen to me. If this happened on February 14th,
yes,
you going up to her a week later is not sufficient. You calling her on the telephone a week later is not sufficient. She's not going to keep dirty laundry, a rug around while you make time to go up to her house.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You've made this case very, very complex because this convoluted story that you tell me doesn't make sense to me, Mr. Zaie. It's a very dumb thing to do.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stacy Flynn says her former upstairs neighbor, Jasmine Cavett, damaged her apartment when she overflowed her bathtub. Jasmine says it was an accident.
Look, the original bills that you gave her amounted to $366. What you've padded over the next couple of months, because you've been aggravated and annoyed, come to $564. Quite honestly, I believe that your time is worth something.
Thank you.
Your time to clean the premises, the time to get rid of the rug, the time to go out and buy new boots, the time to sop up the stuff, the time to wait for people to come and clean the carpeting. That's worth something. Now, the fact that the defendant says it was an accident, well, it certainly wasn't on purpose. She didn't mean to cause this flood, but she did cause the flood, and she was responsible for the consequences, including your loss of time. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I didn't even know her. She apparently didn't like me. I have no idea why.
Completely irresponsible, total drama queen, liar.
I felt unsafe going home. I never knew what she was going to do.
Never once did she even come down to my apartment and ask me if she could help.
Where's my effing money?
Maybe this will teach her a lesson, hopefully.
It's a learning experience.
When she watches Judge Judy, she probably won't ever forget what she did.
You have a very busy corporate schedule.
Yes, I do.
Like what?
I do bartend as well as model, and I'm pursuing other social non-for-profit organizations.
She for real or what?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Zai versus Hagedorn, step forward.
Real estate investor Kumar Zai is suing former friend, 25-year-old bartender Morgan Hagedorn, for a loan for bail. Morgan claims Kumar's pawned her laptop and digital camera behind her back.
Mr. Zai, it is your claim that the defendant owes you some money for bail and for collect calls that she made to your home from jail. She is, according to what I've read in your complaint, the ex-roommate of your ex-girlfriend.
Correct, Your Honor.
Is that right?
Yes.
Ms. Hagedorn?
Yes.
When were you arrested and for what?
It was early March of last year, and I was arrested for driving on a suspended license.
Why didn't you have a license?
Prior court tie-ups.
What does that mean, prior court tie-ups?
What had happened is I had received a notice in the mail, and I did not fill it out in time or get it back, and therefore my license was suspended.
How many times was your license suspended?
Just the once, but due to missing court dates and whatnot, I got it revoked as well as a bench warrant for my arrest, and that's when I was arrested.
You have a very busy corporate schedule, Ms. Hagedorn?
Yes, I do.
You do? Like what?
I do bartend full-time as well as model, and I'm pursuing other social non-for-profit organizations here in, well, my hometown, St. Louis.
Is she for real or what?
It takes up a lot of my time.
You get her a copy of my old book, will you please?
Put that on your schedule.
Why did you call Mr. Zai when you got busted?
I called my roommate, and she was at his apartment, and I didn't know what to do.
Called your roommate on her cell phone?
That is correct.
And you found her at Mr. Zai's apartment?
They witnessed the arrest, and they were aware of what had happened.
Just listen to me very carefully. You called her on her cell phone?
I do believe.
What does that mean, you do believe?
It's been a long time, and it was a very traumatic night.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Zai?
I'm a real estate investor.
Did she call you in your house?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have the phone bill?
Unfortunately, I couldn't obtain the phone bill. No, I don't have the phone record.
Well, what evidence do you have of this whole thing, sir?
Well, I do have a paper from the court from the day that I actually went and bailed her out of jail. I had to charge it on my credit card. There was a record of that, and which was actually the bond money. And I also have a court paper that shows that they refunded the bond money to her and her attorney instead of coming back to me.
Why is that, Ms. Hagedorn? Why did you take the bond money?
I did not receive any bond money. I was told that I was not to receive it, and it was to be paid to my attorney for services rendered.
Who's your attorney?
Leland.
Phone number?
I do not have that information on
Go get it! Go get it!
Okay.
Ready?
Area code 947.
Okay, and it is your testimony that you never saw any of this money, and it went to your attorney for counsel fees that were your responsibility?
Yes.
They were Mr. Zai's responsibility?
That is correct.
Good. So why don't you owe him this money, $1,095?
Well, what happened, Your Honor? Kumars told me that he had taken my laptop as well as my digital camera that was at his girlfriend's grandmother's house, and he pawned it off. This was a brand new laptop.
Go ahead.
Your Honor. What had happened was she pawned her computer approximately 2 months prior to this incident, along with her digital camera. And my ex-girlfriend's grandmother felt sorry for her, went to the pawn shop, got it out of there, and held on to it till she gives her the money to, you know, basically get it back.
So she pawned it?
She pawned it originally, and after repeated phone calls, I've called her at least 20, 30 times, left messages for her, you know, to give me a call back, let's make an arrangement, you know, to pay this money back to me. Never heard back from her. So I contacted my ex-girlfriend's grandmother. I said, is there a way I can get the computer from you to maybe sell it, to maybe recover some of my money? And she says, well, let me call her and tell her that this is what I'm doing. I said, that's fine. And I paid $300 to her, my ex-girlfriend's grandmother, to get her computer and her digital camera. I called her I said, I have your computer, I have your digital camera. If you want to come and pay me the money that you owe me, you know, it's sitting right here. Otherwise, I'm going to try to sell it to recover some of my money. Never heard back from her again. So,
did you sell it?
I sold the computer for $325. I still have the digital camera. I brought it with me to give it back to her.
Well, so you sort of resorted to self-help, sir. You've made this case, which was a relatively simple case, very, very complex.
Yes,
Do you understand, Mr. Zayi?
Yes, yes, I understand.
You should have come to me before you resorted to self-help, sir, because this convoluted story that you tell me doesn't make sense to me, Mr. Zayi. It's a very dumb thing to do. And since you've complicated the situation, there's very little I can do to help you. I mean, this lady, I know, has a very busy corporate schedule, but she doesn't know whether she's a foot or horseback. I don't know whether you got full value for the computer when you sold it for $300. You can't do what you did. You created a problem by complicating the situation by resorting to your own form of self-help. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
I can't help you. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
18-year-old student Jamie Dickinson is suing her ex-boyfriend's mother, store manager Bernice Irwin, for assaulting her and breaking her cell phone. Bernice claims Jamie was in her house without her permission.
All rise. Quiet in the courtroom. All rise. Now, this is case number 40 on the calendar in the matter of Dickinson versus Irwin. Parties, you're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Dickinson, Miss Irwin is your boyfriend's mother.
Yes.
I assume this is the boyfriend.
Yes, he is.
How long have you been his girlfriend?
We're actually broken up right now. We were dating for about a month.
Not dating anymore?
No.
Any particular reason?
We were good friends, and I didn't want to ruin our friendship.
Okay. It is your complaint that Mrs. Irwin, for no good reason, broke your cell phone.
Yes, she did.
And you want her to pay for it.
Yes.
And Miss Irwin says you were an uninvited guest in her home, and that precipitated this incident with the cell phone. So why don't you tell me when this happened?
This happened in February, the 21st. Ryan and I were dating at the time. We had gotten back to his house and we were watching TV, relaxing.
Where were you watching TV?
Up in his living room. And Bernice came home.
Bernice, that's you?
Yes. And she came home yelling and freaking out on Ryan. She began to yell at him even more and put him down.
What was she saying?
You're a loser, you're good for nothing. And then she began to hit him, smack him in the face.
What did he say to her?
Nothing. Nothing was really said. She was just like, you're a loser. And Ryan was just simply not saying anything because I was present. And when she came into the living room, she was yelling at me. And then she had hit Ryan across the face. And then she did it a few more times. And I told her that if she had kept hitting him, that I was going to call the cops because I did not feel comfortable whatsoever. She looked at me and said, I'll do whatever I want. This is my house. Hit him again, and that's when I had called for the police assistance.
Okay, so you used your cell phone to call the police?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what happened next?
When I was on the phone with the police, she was still yelling at Ryan, and they got it on tape and everything like that. And I had said I need police assistance to this address. And then she had noticed I was on the phone with the cops, and then she had attacked me. And I have pictures here of the bruises from when she grabbed my arm and my wrist.
Is that when your phone was broken?
Yes.
Well, tell me how it got broken, Miss Dickinson.
I was on the phone, and she had grabbed my arm, and then she was fighting with me. I was telling her to let go of me, not to touch me. And then she grabbed the top half of my cell phone and snapped it off and opened her front door and threw it outside in the snow.
Okay. Now I'll see the police report, please.
Okay. I also have pictures of the bruises. Would you like to see them?
Yes.
And there's also pictures of my cell phone in there.
Is this the only police report that you have?
Yes, there was no police report written. It was just a log entry.
Okay. Step up, please. Your first name is Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
How old are you, Ryan?
18.
You're not living in your mother's home anymore, is that right?
Yes.
Who are you living with now?
I'm staying with friends now.
How long has it been since you haven't been getting along with your mother?
As long as I can remember.
When did you ultimately move out of the house?
She kicked me out a couple weeks ago after she got arrested for domestic assault on me.
Why don't you get along with your mother?
Because she's crazy.
I also have the police log from her arrest, if you'd like to see that.
I would. Are you going to school, Ryan?
No, not right now.
You working?
No, not currently.
How are you supporting yourself?
I really haven't been.
Okay. All right, Miss Irwin, what kind of work do you do?
I'm a store manager.
Were you working on the 21st of February?
I was.
What were your hours of employment?
On that particular day, I worked till about 6 p.m.
Did you go directly from the store home?
I did not.
Where did you go?
I went to a friend's house, and then I came home.
What time did you get home?
Approximately 7 to 7:30 p.m.
And you came home and you found your son and his girlfriend watching television?
They were in my living room. My house was a total disaster. Ryan was not allowed to have any guests at my home without my permission, which he continued to do so, and I was quite angry.
Had you ever met this young lady before?
Once or twice, yes.
Where?
One time at my house, and another time she was leaving my house for a few minutes. That was it.
You never had any problem with her?
No, I didn't.
So what happened when you came home on the 21st?
I'd asked Ryan why he had a guest in my home. We'd had many problems in the past with him having company, and I told him he was not allowed to have anybody in my home without my permission. Ryan got very angry at me and started swearing, cursing, calling me several names. He then spit in my face, literally, and I slapped him across the face once. At that point, Jamie had gotten off my sofa and started calling me names that I will not even repeat, and I asked them to leave my house. They refused.
Shh. Yes?
She did say, threatened she was going to call the police. I, at that time, told her if indeed she called the police, my son probably would have been arrested because he was on probation.
For what?
Numerous things, assault and battery, disturbing the peace. He was on probation for assault and battery on a police officer.
That's serious stuff.
It had
Ryan?
been serious stuff.
That's serious stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so she called the police.
Yeah, I didn't know she was on the phone. I had just got done telling her if indeed she called the police.
There was a lot of screaming going around, so
yes, there was.
Everybody was screaming. I want to know how her phone got broken.
She got on the phone with somebody, I'm not sure who, saying that I was abusing my son, which was not true.
That was with the police.
My son had just spit in my face, and I did slap him across the face after he had called me several vulgar names. One time I did slap him across the face. Yes, I did.
I want to know how her phone got broken.
Well, she was on the phone, and I, at that point, once again told her, if you want to make the phone call, go outside. I need you to get out of my house. And she refused to leave, so I took the phone out of her hand. And as far as I know, it was the top part of her cell phone that did snap off. And at that point, I threw it outside to make them leave my house. I'd asked them several times to leave.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Have you ever been in trouble with the law?
Nope, never.
He has been.
I understand that.
Set your sights a little higher. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I have a new
Don't say
boyfriend.
anything, Ryan.
And later today,
Buster's a stubborn dog, there's no doubt about it.
I have a very stubborn dog, but she has been very, very well trained.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jamie Dickinson says her ex-boyfriend's mother owes for breaking her cell phone. Bernice Irwin claims Jamie was trespassing on her property.
Okay. There are a couple of things that I don't quite understand, Miss Irwin, and I think that probably you would have been more prudent if when you came home and found Ryan there watching television with his girlfriend, you waited until she left and then confronted him. As far as I've heard, they weren't doing anything untoward. They were sitting and watching television in your living room. So when you came home and started to go off on him in front of his girlfriend, especially a kid that you'd had trouble with and that clearly has a temper, that probably wasn't the most prudent thing to do. And then there was a lot of yelling and screaming. However, Miss Dickinson was an invited guest to your home. She was invited by your son, who lives there, or did then. And whatever argument you were having with your son, and I'm not going to get into slapping him in the face or screaming or yelling or bad names, I'm not getting into that. The only thing that's before me is whether you're responsible to buy her a new cell phone. I believe her when she says that she told you she was going to call the police, and I believe you knew she was calling the police because that's what she said she was going to do. And at that time, if you grabbed her by the arm and grabbed her cell phone and snapped it off and then threw it outside, you're responsible to buy her a new cell phone. It seems to me that there was an altercation in your home and it was getting out of hand. It was a good thing that she was calling the police. So why would you be angry? So, how much was the cell phone?
It is $199.99. I have the paper from the website singular.com.
Okay, can I see it, please? And a cell phone. Who is this person?
Carol, a friend of mine.
Was she there that evening?
She wasn't there that evening.
Okay. This is one of these cute little phones that takes pictures?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't take pictures. Okay, that's all you're suing for, the cost of the cell phone. Anything else you want to tell me?
Nope, that about covers everything.
What do you do for a living, Miss Dickerson?
I babysit, and I used to work at CVS. I had just quit my job, though, because I'm still in high school, and I'm graduating this year, so it was kind of hard doing both.
Have you ever been in trouble with the law?
Nope, never.
He has been.
I understand that.
Lots of times. Set your sights a little higher. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I have a new
Don't say
boyfriend.
anything, Ryan. You've got a little ways to go to get your act together, young man. Somebody who's 18 years old, who's not going to school, who's not working, who's not supporting themselves, who's got an arrest history, according to your mother, that's lengthy, is not going down the right path. The yellow brick road is eluding you, Ryan. You're going to have to find it. Otherwise, you're going to be dead by the time you're 30. That would be a shame, right? Be smart. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $199. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm a little confused about the whole thing, actually. I don't really believe that I broke Jamie's cell phone.
I was not brought up that way. I was brought in a very well-nurtured home where no violence is present.
I did ask her to leave my home along with my son.
Mom overreacts a whole lot.
I'm really hoping that we can be friends yet again, mother and daughter. Mother and son, I'm sorry.
That'd be wonderful if it could, but I don't know if that could ever happen.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Horn Torres versus Cunningham. Step forward, please.
25-year-old homemaker Deanna Horn Torres is suing dog trainer Brian Cunningham for injuring her dog Buster during a session. Brian says he did nothing out of the ordinary.
Miss Torres?
Yes.
And this is Buster.
Yes.
And Buster was behaving badly. How old is Buster?
He's 4 months.
Where did you get him?
We got him from a breeder.
What kind of dog is he?
He's a boxer.
Did the breeder tell you that boxers are hard to train?
No, she didn't.
Is he hard to train?
He's doing better, but he is a little difficult. Yes, he is.
He doesn't look interested in what's going on here, I'll tell you that right now. Well, according to what your complaint states, because you were having some difficulty in training Buster on your own, you asked your vet for a recommendation.
Yes.
Had you used this vet before?
Yes.
You think that the vet that you used is a good one?
Yes.
And your vet recommended Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
And said he was a good dog trainer?
Yes.
And you made an agreement with him. I think his whole fee was $525. And you paid him, and it is your claim that he hurt your dog during the training sessions, and you want a full refund.
Yes.
The $525 that you paid Mr. Cunningham was for how many sessions?
He didn't give me an amount. He said he would come to my house until I was completely satisfied. He didn't tell me how long it would take.
I offer everybody, it's a 6-week course or until the dog is completely trained.
What kind of trained? You mean potty trained, crate trained?
Housebreaking, chewing, digging, obedience is how we do it.
What if you get a really dumb dog?
There aren't really very many dumb dogs. It's just folks, you've got to follow up with the instruction I give you.
What about stubborn dogs?
Very stubborn sometimes. Buster's a stubborn dog, there's no doubt about it.
I have a very stubborn dog. But she has me very, very well trained.
That's good.
All right, Ms. Torres, tell me what happened.
He had came 3 times to my house. The first day, everything went fine. The second time he came, there was a pink mark around the dog's neck, and he told me it was because the dog was a white dog and it would go away. And it did. Within 2 hours, it was gone. And so the next time he came, the dog ran under the bed to hide. Well, whenever he came out...
That's all right. You can leave him alone. He's fine.
As soon as he put the collar around the dog's neck, the dog snapped at him. And so when he was being rough with him, we asked him, why are you being so rough? And he said that he had to do it to keep him from snapping at people. So we said, okay, well,
You
Buster.
mean the dog bit the inside of his mouth?
Yes. And so at that time, we ended the session. He took the collar off the dog, and the dog ran underneath the bed. And when I went to the dog, I had noticed the injuries that I do have pictures of.
And my husband talked to Brian later on the phone and told Brian that we didn't want his services anymore. We couldn't have him abuse our dog.
Okay, so let me see the photographs that you took. Okay, Mr. Cunningham, I'll hear you.
Your Honor, I've been training dogs for 17 years. I have 2 witnesses to tell you what kind of trainer I am.
Tell me your name.
Barbara Fuquay.
Step up, please. Are you just a satisfied customer?
Oh, I'm absolutely satisfied.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have a Maltese, Sophie.
Little one?
She's very small, yes. She's about 5 pounds.
Does she bark?
Well, actually, she does not bark. No, not usually.
Good.
Yes, I know. I'm so happy with her, and I'm so happy with Brian.
Okay. You, sir?
My name is Victor McDougall, and Brian has trained 2 dogs for me. The first one was Tara, and she had a little problem with liking to chew on furniture and stuff. And, you know, Brian helped me train her and get her out of that. And most people would tell me that, boy, I wish my kids listened as well as my dog. So, yeah, so that's always good to hear.
Okay. Have a seat. So this is my problem, Mr. Cunningham. I believe that you are a good dog trainer.
Thank you.
And I believe that because their vet that they have tremendous confidence in recommended you.
Yes.
And you bring 2 witnesses who I have no reason to doubt that say that you've been wonderful with their animals. This didn't work out. Whether you pulled a little too hard, whether the dog bruises easily, I don't know what happened. But these people did not cause this injury to the dog. I can understand they're being upset. Does it sound like you're losing yet, sir?
No, it doesn't.
Good, perfect. Would you give these to Mr. Cunningham, please? We have to know when to...
Okay.
Take them back now, please. Now, you have a whole bunch of satisfied customers. And I don't think that, based upon what these people tell me, that this is standard fare for you, because otherwise their vet would not have recommended you, and you have satisfied customers. So if these people are not satisfied, you should have given them back their money and said, in 17 years, I never had this kind of problem. I don't want this kind of problem now. My time is too valuable.
Your Honor,
yes,
if
Mr.
I may,
Cunningham.
I believe that I should be paid for my time. If I show up 4 times and they refuse to accept any of my... I understand that. The dog, you know what? Here's the thing. Had they been working the dog every week, only 10 minutes a day, that would not have been the case
Mr. Cunningham,
ever.
you know how kind I was just being to you before a moment ago? I was being kind to you because like 10 million people are going to watch this. A lot of them have dogs. So I was trying to be kind and say, you're a wonderful dog trainer.
Well, I am.
This was an aberration. You should have just said, going to return your money, and that's it. But since you don't seem to get it, what I'm going to tell you is this, sir. If you went to their house first time and then came back for the next session and you found that they weren't following your direction,
Yes.
at that point you could have said, just a minute, I can't work this way. I'm not going to treat this dog in any way that's in any way in any way that's rough, that's going to leave this kind of bruising. Here's your money back. Not the 4th time you came to the house, but the 2nd time you came to the house and said, I can't work with you people. I could work with that dog, but I can't work with you. So here's your money back. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $525. Clearly, this dog is not intimidated by anything, not even my voice.
No, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
20-year-old student Jennifer Sanchez is suing her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old waiter Jared Butler, for totaling her car.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 439 on the calendar in the matter of Sanchez versus Butler. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Ms. Sanchez, according to your complaint, you and the defendant were in a relationship and for a period of time lived together. Is that right? Mm-hmm. You claim that the defendant, without your permission, took your car and wrecked it. You had no insurance, according to you. The car was totaled, and you want him to pay you $5,000.
Right.
The defendant says he had your permission, and he has a whole bunch of excuses One of his excuses is you should have had insurance on the car, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Tell me under what circumstances he had your car.
Well, what had happened was early in the morning, I had to be at work at 7:30, and he had misplaced his car keys. So he decided that he would just take my car to go and pick up his spare key that was at his mother's house. And while I was getting ready for work, he just grabbed my keys and walked out the door, and right before he closed the door, he just yelled that he was going to take my car before I could react or anything.
Well, if you had time to react, he had taken your car before and had driven your car before, is that right?
Right.
You wouldn't have said no.
I would have taken him.
Why?
Because I was nearly ready and I had to be to work and...
But you would have had to have taken him and then come back, right? So there would have been no point in you taking him. Ms. Sanchez, I want you to answer my questions honestly. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
There would have been no point in you saying, just a minute, I'll drive you to your mother's house and then bring you back in order for you to pick up your car, right?
Right.
He had driven your car before. There wouldn't have been a problem.
Right.
So you grabbed her car keys.
No, Your Honor. She gave me permission to use her car keys, Your Honor.
I'll decide whether she gave you permission.
Okay.
You grabbed her car keys and you got into the car.
Yes.
And what happened?
I headed towards my mother's house to get my spare key from my vehicle. On the way back, I got in a car accident.
You got into a car accident that was your fault.
It's proclaimed as my fault, yes.
First of all, you have to speak slowly. You have to speak so I can hear you. You got into a car accident that was your fault.
Yes.
How?
It was said that I ran a red light, and I got in a car accident.
No, your voice trails off at the end, sir. I heard ran a red light, and then?
I got in a car accident.
You hit another car?
Yes.
Did you run a red light?
The light was yellow.
You ran a red light. Were you given a citation?
No.
You claim, sir, that your driving license has been suspended.
Restricted.
Or restricted. Why was your driver's license restricted?
Because I was driving a vehicle that was uninsured.
How long had you lived together?
At this time, 1 month.
Now, had you ever had a discussion with her about insurance?
About 9 months before this, and her and I broke up and we got back together. California law assumed she had insurance.
But you never questioned her?
No.
Now, you have insurance on your car.
Yes.
Did you report this accident to your insurance company?
Yes, I did. And they said they wouldn't cover me to drive someone else's vehicle. My insurance only covers me to drive my vehicle.
Really?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that the way it happens here?
Oh, no, I've never had an accident.
It was always my understanding that if you had insurance, that your insurance covers you even if you're driving somebody else's car.
That's what we had thought. And her father and myself, we had called my insurance company, and we've been fighting them. And they said that they wouldn't cover me to drive her vehicle because it was uninsured, and they're not going to pay for it. I was willing to pay the deductible to get it fixed, but they wouldn't cover it.
Could your car have been fixed?
No. It was written off as a total loss by more than one place.
What year car was it?
It was a 96.
What's your insurance carrier's name? Let me see. Is this the name of your broker?
Yes.
Good morning. This is Judge Judy Scheindlin. To whom am I speaking? I'm in the middle of trying a case, and I'd like some information from you. Okay, I have one of your insured before me. His name is Jared Butler. Are you familiar with that person? Okay. My question is this on his policy. Does that policy cover him if he is driving someone else's car? Liability only. It won't cover collision. I see. Well, that's really what I want to know, because that's exactly what happened. Okay. Very good. You've been a tremendous help to me. Thank you. Bye-bye. Can I see the bills for your car, proof of loss?
It's right here with the letter we sent him.
Mr. Butler, I give you 30 seconds or less to explain to me why you should not be responsible for this.
I just feel I shouldn't be responsible for her negligence. She drove her car without insurance. California state law requires her to be insured. She shouldn't allow somebody to use her car, or be driving to work every day, driving her nephews, allowing us to drive to Big Bear in a car that's uninsured.
So you believe
I don't think I should be penalized for her negligence.
So you believe that she is the proximate cause of her car being totaled because
Absolutely
she
not.
should have had insurance?
It was my fault that I was in a car accident. It's my responsibility for the accident. It's her responsibility for the insurance.
Right.
So I'm not blaming her for the accident. I'm taking responsibility for the accident.
How are you taking responsibility for the accident?
Well, prior to all this, her father and I had been trying to settle on an agreement, and I told him I would pay the $1,000 deductible for him, and I could work out some payment plan, and he didn't want that. And because he wanted to go to court and see whose fault it was, really.
It's your fault. You ran a red light. Wasn't even as if you were the innocent in this car accident. You were the guilty person in this car accident. What about the car that you hit?
They had sent her father some notice saying that they are $5,700 they want for the car to be fixed.
Yes.
That's what happened as far as that goes.
They actually sent me the notice. They're coming after me.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jennifer Sanchez says ex-boyfriend Jared Butler owes her for totaling her car. Jared says he had permission to drive the vehicle.
Now, just for my own information, why didn't you have insurance?
I actually did have insurance, but I wasn't aware of it. My father had let me believe that I had been canceled from their policy because he wanted me to pay the insurance bill, and I couldn't afford it at the time.
Yes. So did you have insurance or not?
Yes, I did, and I didn't find that out until I purchased this new car to go and put it on the policy.
So you have insurance? You mean if I didn't ask that question, you weren't going to tell me?
No, I would have said.
When were you going to tell me?
When he was done relaying his story.
So what was your out-of-pocket expense?
My out-of-pocket expense has been nothing so far except for I had to buy the new car, which was $9,000.
Right, but your insurance is going to... You do have insurance.
Right.
What's the deductible on the insurance?
I don't know that.
Well, if you don't know that, Miss Sanchez, how do you expect me to make a judgment? I have to compensate you because clearly this accident was his fault.
Right.
And he should be prepared to cover you for any of your out-of-pocket expense. And if you have a car that has a $500 deductible or a $1,000 deductible, that he pays. You're suing him for $5,000. How am I supposed to know what your deductible is on this insurance that your father carried for you but didn't tell you about? I'm sure he told you about it before you walked into court.
Well, I didn't find that out until I went to get my new car insured under his policy.
Who is this person here with you?
This is my mom.
Do you know?
I do now.
Perfect. Stand up, please. Ms. Sanchez.
Yes.
Would you please tell me what the deductible is on this insurance that your husband wisely carried for his daughter?
I actually don't have that information as well. Jennifer and myself were not aware until she purchased the new vehicle that my husband, in fact, did continue paying her insurance bill for her. Because she's a full-time student, we would never consider allowing her to drive a vehicle without insurance.
Very smart. But how am I supposed to know what kind of judgment to render in her favor? What were her losses?
Well, because of my husband's feeling, I believe, in talking directly to me was that because Jared did, in fact, not have permission to drive the car on that day.
Yes, he did. I'm telling you he did.
Okay, indirectly, I'll agree.
I'm telling you he did.
All righty. Indirectly, I feel, in my opinion, that he did not, because she did not have a chance to respond.
I'm telling you that that didn't happen. Because if he had taken the car without her permission, she gets on the phone, she calls the police and said, somebody just took my car without my permission. He's driven the car before. He drove the car before when she had no knowledge about this other insurance policy. She knew that she didn't have insurance. She let him drive the car. She drove the car herself.
That's true. Jared has driven the car one time before to Big Bear, as he stated.
Just a second.
But never without her.
Trust me, he's driven the car before. Maybe when they went out on a date, he drove. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Went out to dinner or to a movie.
never
drove.
taking it upon himself to get in the car and take off.
Listen to me. Don't be naive. Don't be naive. I left my keys. I can't find my keys. I'm running off to my mom's to pick up a set of keys. I'll be back in 2 minutes before you have to leave for work. And whether she handed him the keys or he went in her bag and took the keys, that's what happened. I don't care what your husband's feelings were. Your husband feels as if he should pay for the whole car and not put it through his insurance?
Actually, it's not the entire amount of value of the car. It's what we could get through small claims court. The value of the car exceeds the $5,000.
How much did your insurance company pay you for the car?
We did not report it to the insurance company because she was not aware, nor was I, that she actually was covered. My husband even told me that she did not have insurance.
When were you made aware of it?
When she purchased her new vehicle.
When was that?
Almost 5 months after this accident occurred.
Approximately 4 weeks ago.
Something wrong with this picture over here. Your husband knows that he has insurance for some bizarre reason, which is maybe why he's not here. And any reasonable person would say, I'm going to put in my claim right away, because how else am I going to get paid for this car?
The reason that I can give you for that is because from the beginning, there was not a problem as far as Jared agreeing to pay for the damages that he had himself incurred on Jennifer's vehicle. That was never a problem, but as months and months went by, he then said that he was only partially responsible. Now he's saying he's not responsible at all.
Oh, he is responsible.
Of course, we know that.
He's responsible. The only question is how much. I mean, I can understand your husband saying, listen, if I report this to my insurance company, my premiums are going to go up, and they're going to go up and stay up, which is a problem. Now, that's a reason. That's a reason saying, why should I be penalized when he caused the accident? And by my insurance going up, all because of his accident, I'm not going to report it to my insurance company and let him take care of it. That's a reason that I might buy.
Right, and that's exactly correct.
Well, then why don't you just say that to me instead of this hocus pocus? My husband didn't tell me. My husband didn't tell me. What?
I don't understand, Judge. I don't understand.
I still didn't get a straight answer from you, Miss Sanchez. Were you supposed to have had insurance on this car?
As far
Look
as
at me.
I knew.
Were you supposed to have insured the car yourself? Just answer my question.
Yes.
Yes. Did you tell your father you had insured the car yourself?
No.
When were you supposed to have put insurance on this car yourself?
I was supposed to have done it a while back, but I could
Why
not
didn't you?
I couldn't afford to.
Did you tell your father you couldn't afford to?
Yes, he knew I couldn't.
No, don't tell me what you knew. Did you have a discussion with him and say to him, I cannot afford to maintain insurance on this car?
Yes.
When?
It was probably about a year before this accident happened.
Did your father say you have to maintain insurance on the car?
Yes, he did.
So why didn't you?
Because I couldn't afford to.
Then you don't drive. What happens if you have an accident? Happens all the time. You have no insurance to cover your car. And what about the people that you injure?
I would have been responsible.
And how were you going to pay for that if you couldn't even pay for the insurance?
Well, I would have had to get a job.
I thought you have a job.
I had a job, and I lost it.
You don't drive a car without insurance. Mrs. Sanchez.
Yes.
I quite frankly can understand why your husband would not want to cover this part of the damage.
Correct.
Your husband, however, since the car is insured, is probably going to have to cover the people who he hit, unless you want to be out that money too. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand the legalities of that, but morally, I think that's a little...
He's going to have to be responsible because he's not going to do it.
We've clearly found that to be the
Right.
case.
But I believe that your daughter is partially responsible for what happened here. I believe that he is more responsible for what happened, but your daughter actually drove a car that she knew was not insured. And she did allow him to drive that car, knowing that that car was not insured. When did you purchase this car?
My father purchased it for me about a year before. I had only had it a year.
You have the purchase price of the car?
I don't.
Let me see all your papers, please. Well, the car is pretty well totaled, that's for sure. Nobody was hurt in this car accident? That's really lucky.
If you read the police report, Jared states in that the reason he may have ran the red light was because heading westbound, the sun was in his eyes.
I don't care why he ran a red light. He ran a red light. I know he ran a red light. He knows he ran a red light. It's in a big hurry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Who did her father buy the car from?
He actually purchased it from his sister, which would be Jennifer's aunt.
How much did he pay for the car?
He said $6,800.
Yeah, that's true. That's correct.
So he paid her $6,800?
To his sister, yes.
And the car had 4,300 miles on it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the car needed a paint job?
Yes.
So say the car was worth $4,200. And I believe that you had some responsibility with regard to this for driving a vehicle that was uninsured, at least uninsured according to you. I do not believe, Mrs. Sanchez, that your husband has to absorb his problem. And it was his problem. Should she have to absorb his problem? Partially, but certainly not your husband. You and your husband would have to absorb his problem by reporting this to your insurance company, which means your rates clearly would go up. The car was driven by someone other than a member of your family, was clearly involved in an accident that was totally the fault of the defendant.
Mm-hmm.
And your insurance premiums would probably go up permanently, or at least for the next 5 years. So I believe that your daughter bears 25% of the responsibility, somewhere around that, and I'm awarding you $3,200. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Span versus Wilson. Step forward, please.
Janet Spahn, a 35-year-old housewife from Colorado, is suing her former babysitter, 18-year-old Eric Wilson. 2 years ago, Eric was arrested for stealing money from Janet's home. Now, Janet alleges more money is missing and believes Eric is to blame.
Order, all rise. Your Honor, this is case number 163 on the calendar in the matter of Span versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
All right, let me understand this case. Miss Spahn, this young man babysat for you, for your children.
Yes.
A couple of years ago.
Yes.
And at that time, he wasn't doing so well. You didn't know it at the time?
No, I did not.
But you had a drug problem?
Yes, I did.
And you had been involved in a series of criminal activity that you're not proud of now, I understand.
That is correct.
You're his mother?
Yes, I am.
While he was babysitting for you, he stole some money.
Yes, he did.
And he was arrested and prosecuted.
Correct.
What was your sentence?
I got theft charges. I was ordered to pay restitution in the amount that she had requested.
How much was that?
It was $900, I believe, and it ended up being $1,200 after all of the fees and everything, all the victim assistance, all of that. And I paid that in full, and I was ordered to go on to probation. I finished all my probation stuff. I did my community service, paid all my restitution.
What kind of community service did you have to do?
Weekend work crew. I'd have to go up into the mountains and dig trails and stuff, and kind of.
And according to your complaint, Ms. Spahn, you found out that there was more money taken that was originally either reported or somehow the paperwork, the police paperwork,
yes,
was lost.
It was not in the actual record, the original record, which is, this is the original report, and this is the second report, which we did file within the statute of limitations, that showed the additional $900 was missing. Now, it was $1,100 originally, which we were paid the restitution after, you know, the balance was paid, and this is the additional $900 that was missing, which is what I am here for.
Mm-hmm. Your neighbors?
Yes.
Ms. Spahn, if I find out that what this young man says in his answer is true, this is a sympathetic case on both sides. Mm-hmm. Because what this young man says, and his mother seems to confirm, is that in the last 2 years he has, in fact, turned himself around. Drug-free,
To a point, yes.
What do you mean to a point?
I've been working on it. I have been clean for about a month now.
What kind of drugs were you using?
Marijuana and alcohol.
You can't just work on that, sir.
Yeah.
You have to, after 2 years.
I know.
Stop.
It does take time, and it's kind of hard. It's
Well,
a difficult thing to do, and with the right people around me and the right kind of stuff in my head and not hanging around the bad crowd, I think I can do it.
did you get your GED?
Yes, I did.
That says that you did here and that you scored rather well.
Yes, I did.
Have you been arrested in the last 2 years?
No.
Since this incident? You seem to say, the
Yes, he
smile
was.
on your face suggests to me that you know he's been arrested
Yes,
since.
he was. The officers actually called me at home.
When?
3 months later, my house was broken into. We assumed it was him, and the police called me to verify that he was arrested 2 days later. And that's when he went to the detention center up at Lookout Mountain.
I never went to Lookout Mountain. I did go to a detention center for a shoplifting charge, Mount View Detention Center.
Let's talk about the last year.
Okay.
Have you been arrested in the last year?
No.
You had to hesitate for a minute.
Well, I wasn't quite sure. I haven't been arrested. I haven't gone to jail or anything, no.
Well, I didn't ask you whether
I
you went
did
to
get a
jail. I asked
ticket.
you whether you were arrested.
I did get a ticket.
What kind of ticket?
Underage drinking.
Ms. Spahn, why is it, first, that that second amount of money, that $900, was not originally reported?
That was up to the sheriff that made the report out, and it explains it all here in this report.
Let me take a look at it.
Showing that the original $900 that was originally stolen was never made it onto this report. And that states it there.
How old are your children?
Almost 7, and the other one is 4.5.
So they were 2 and 5 when he babysat for you?
Actually, yes, around there.
Did he take good care of them?
Do I? Of course.
Did he take good care of
them? No.
But you used him as a babysitter frequently?
4 times.
And you were dissatisfied the first, second, and third time?
The third time.
The
And
third-
that's when we had found out that money started disappearing out of the house. I came home, my son had a bloody nose, he was in bed, he had blood all over his face and everything, and he had just left him. Obviously, he was going through my house at the time, rummaging through everything that I owned.
You want to tell me about taking the money from her house?
Well, I was with my cousin, which was unmentioned to this point so far. He lived in Tennessee at the time, and I actually was not taking part in the theft of the money.
What do you mean you weren't? Listen to me,
I
Mr.
didn't-
Wilson, I want to know, it's very important that when you answer questions that I pose to you, that you tell me the truth.
Right, I understand.
You understand that?
Yes.
I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear nonsense. I don't want to hear that you didn't take part in it. If your cousin was with you and you saw him take the money, and the reason he had access to her house is because you were there, then you're responsible. Do you understand?
Yes.
Is that the kind of excuse you were going to make to me?
No, not exactly.
Well, then I'll hear your excuse.
It's okay. I guess I'll just say I took it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I drive
Hey,
by
keep
their
your kids and
house.
your dogs off
I drive
our
by their
yard.
house and their little kids flip me off.
Real people, Judge Judy. Janet Spahn claims her former babysitter, Eric Wilson, stole a large amount of cash from her house and wants him to fess up and pay her back.
I'm being very serious with you. If your cousin was with you from Tennessee, which is what you say here, and that you took the rap for him.
I did.
But your cousin had access to her home through you.
Yes, she agreed. She agreed that my cousin could be with me when we were babysitting. She did agree to it. And when I got back the next day and when I found out the next morning that money was missing, I asked him, and we had gone shopping that night, and he had said he had some money left over. Let's go have a good time, you know. I didn't know it was stolen from her house.
But it had been stolen over a period of several days, not just one day. How many days was your cousin at the house with you?
I believe he did go twice with me.
You paid the restitution yourself? Did you ever try to get any money from your cousin?
No.
Why not?
Well, when my grandfather had died, my aunt and uncle, we were out playing basketball and stuff, and my uncle actually kind of assaulted me, so we haven't spoken to them since.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But you asked that your cousin could accompany you in this babysitting job, and she gave permission.
Yes.
So your cousin did have access to her home through you.
Correct.
All right. Now, she says there's an additional $900. Why did you keep so much cash in the house?
We had just sold a 1926 Model T in California here, and we had brought the cash home, and we had not deposited into the bank yet because we were having a carpenter come in to redo our basement. So he wanted to be paid cash, and it had only been 1 week that we had had the cash in the house.
Was the cash kept all in one place?
Yes, it was. It was in a sock rolled up in a locked bedroom behind a bed.
So how come you didn't know at one time how much was missing?
We knew that some money was disappearing. My husband was accusing me, and I didn't know where the money was at the time.
What do you mean, missing from the sock?
Yes, a little bit at a time. And then we put 2 and 2 together, and we had set up some tape in the bedroom door. So when the door had been opened and unlocked, that the tape would be stuck at the top of the door, which it was. He had entered the bedroom, and that sock was on the side of the bed with half the cash hanging out. That was the last night. That was when there was $1,100 taken out that was one day. He took $1,100 out.
How much money in total was in the sock?
$4,000 total.
And how much was
$2,000 ended up missing. $1,100 was retrieved through court and through the money that he had left. He had used credit cards out of my purse and everything else.
Did you do that?
No.
Who did?
I have no.
I have a document right here.
Of that.
Let me see what you have.
brought up a card.
Yeah.
It was done on the same day that he had stolen the $1,100. It was notarized and said that that somebody had tried to purchase video equipment, which is what he bought with our money when they retrieved it.
Did you find your credit card?
Oh, yes, I did. The credit card had not been activated yet, so that's why they notified us. So all these things happen within like a week.
Okay. Now, I'd like you to tell me why you don't think that you should be responsible for this additional $900, which I believe was missing.
Well, when she did originally say it, it did change. The amount of what was missing changed 3 different times. We told the judge this at the original trial or original hearing. I pled guilty to the charge. I paid my restitution in full. I paid what the judge ordered me to pay. I paid what she asked the judge to pay, the requested amount. I paid the requested amount. I got off of probation. I paid all my restitution. I filled my debt to society. I'm trying to get back on the straight and narrow, working hard.
Okay. Mr. Wilson, this report suggests that there was some sort of a snafu in the police paperwork, that the money was reported missing, but somehow missed it when it was ultimately presented to the court. So we're faced with a situation where this lady is going to be out $900, which seems to be unfair. And on the other hand, you seem to suggest that you're trying to get your life back in order. And the fact that you've paid your debt to society, which is what you say, doesn't necessarily mean you've paid your entire debt to this lady, because she's still out an additional $900.
I never saw that $900.
Well, whether you saw it or not, if somebody took the money, it wasn't her 2-year-old, it wasn't her 4-year-old, you were involved with drugs and alcohol at the time. I don't know what your cousin was involved with, drugs and alcohol, or maybe he's just a thief. But either you or he, through you, because that's how he got access to her home,
Correct.
took her property. Somebody has to pay for that.
Correct.
There is something else in this complaint that, however, that bothers me, Ms. Spons.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She threatens to kill us and tells us she will not leave us alone until we move.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Eric Wilson says after he was arrested for stealing from his neighbor, Janet Spahn, he paid the money back to her. Now Eric says Janet won't stop harassing him and his family.
What bothers me is that you folks are neighbors, and there's a suggestion in the answer that there's a lot of hostility that's still going on now from your end. Your husband, you're angry, and you do things to
Certainly.
harass them. You have a boy and a girl?
No, I don't. I have 2 sons.
Miss Spahn, I assume that you let this young man babysit for you because you know his family, you know his mother. Did she always?
No, I did not.
Well,
we had just moved here. We had just moved to Colorado at the time, and I had asked his mother, assuming that she would, think that, if her son had good intentions to watch my children, if he did not, that she would not let him babysit. But she did, and she knew what his intentions were.
Well,
that was far on my part.
No, I did not. Miss Spahn, I don't think that this lady knew what her son's intentions were.
I came over to their house and introduced myself, and they never even met my mother before I started babysitting.
Do you have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many other children do you have?
I have 1 daughter.
How old is she?
15.
She okay?
She's great.
She have any trouble with drugs, alcohol, school?
No, I think her brother's been a good example of a bad example, and she's everything against it because of that, whether that's good or bad. But she's very Christian and she's very straight.
Does your husband live in the house with you?
Oh, yes.
Do you work?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I run a bank.
And what about your husband?
He works for the school district.
So, and you have a long work history? You've been
Yes.
working for a long time? How many years at the same job?
Well, I got promoted, so I went to a different position, but I've been in banking for 11 years.
And your husband, how long has he been working for the school system?
13 after he got out of college. He went right there, and he's been there for 13 years.
Let me tell you why I'm asking these questions, Miss Spahn, so you'll understand. I've been around the family courts for a quarter of a century. And what strikes me as sad, has always struck me as being sad, you can expect a child to go off, get involved in drugs, alcohol, criminal activity, if they come from a family that is dysfunctional. But what I've seen more and more of is families that appear to be perfectly functional families have a child that just goes bad. And you hope that that turns around. And you never know when that's going to happen. So what I'm suggesting to you is you have 2 young boys. As good a parent as you are, as good an example as you set for your children, as law-abiding as you are, work history for over a decade, right out of school, got a job, and working in the same job, that's this lady and her husband. I'm sure they try to set a good example for this young man, and they don't know what happened.
Something went wrong.
It happens.
I know.
You have to feel sorry for that. Because but for the grace of God, it could be you.
Or my kids.
Or your kids.
That's right.
So while there's no question that I believe that this young man is responsible for paying you, for making you whole, I think it's a tragic mistake for you and your husband to continue what I will refer to as a minor vendetta against the family. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So this is a neighbor. This lady did not hope for the kind of problem that she's having with this boy. And I have a sense, from looking at her face, that it ain't over yet.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
You better straighten yourself out. Kids make mistakes when they're young, and they say, well, I have a whole lifetime to correct them. How old are you now, 17?
18.
18.
I just turned 18, and I was going to get my record sealed.
Well, you're not going to get your record sealed, sir, if you just got a ticket for underage drinking. That doesn't suggest to me a year ago or whatever, and Mr. Wilson, listen to me. You just told me 2 minutes ago that you've been clean for about a month. That isn't exactly a lifetime.
Right.
The mistakes you make when you're 15, 16, 17, and 18, sometimes you can't correct them because they create a lifelong habit. So you have choices that you have to make. And if you don't make responsible choices starting right now, sir, at age 18, you're going to suffer your whole life, and your mother's going to suffer her whole life, and your father's going to suffer his whole life. They ever do anything bad to you?
No.
Are they good parents?
Very good.
It's your responsibility now at age 18 to see to it that they have pleasure from you, not grief.
Right.
So you better start trying harder, much harder. All right, judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $900. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Clear your man.
Thank you.
And on the next Judge
Parties on Cox versus Tagliavore. Step forward, please.
20-year-old Wendy Cox is suing her uncle, 50-year-old Joseph Tagliavore. Wendy says before her grandmother died, she promised Wendy she could have her 1991 Ford Thunderbird. Joseph says the car should be sold and the money divided equally between him and his siblings.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Your Honor, this is number 178 on the calendar in the matter of Cox versus Tagliavore. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Miss Cox, this is your uncle.
Yes.
And who are you?
I'm Joe's wife.
Your grandmother, your mother, passed away.
Yes.
According to your complaint, your grandmother, with whom you enjoyed a lovely relationship, promised you
her vehicle, of whichever it may be, when she passed away, which is a 91 Thunderbird.
When did she make this promise to you?
This was, she had an 88 Thunderbird, I think it was 88 or 89, which my other aunt had received, and at the time I just turned 16, and she promised me then the white Thunderbird, which went to my aunt, who also has children and needed a vehicle. So she always promised me that she would leave me her car.
You must have had a hot grandmother. She liked Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
So she passed away recently. According to your complaint, the only signed will makes no mention of that bequest.
No. It was also done in '77.
Could I bring up something, Your Honor?
You, sir, are the executor of the estate.
Yes, according to the signed will, yes.
And is there another will, sir?
Yes. This is a will that we received from a attorney that said that from the discussion I had with my sister, Deborah, which is Wendy's mother, that he had told her that...
Just, you can't tell me all these things. This is all hearsay. You received another will.
Yes.
That is unsigned.
That's the will.
Okay, and this was executed in 1992.
Yes.
All right, so let me understand this. We have a 1977 will which makes no mention, that is signed.
Yes.
And makes no mention of this car bequest. Then you have a 1992 will, which according to the plaintiff does discuss the car.
Yes.
Let me just take a look at it. Mr. Tagliavore, were you satisfied that your mother had, in fact, in 1992, had a change of heart, despite the fact that you didn't sign this will?
Yes, I didn't know it. Yes.
Could you sit down, please? Just sit down. The answer is yes. Evidently there was some dispute that your mother had with somebody else, and she, in fact, changed her will.
Yes.
But did not sign it.
As far as I know.
As far as you know, didn't sign it.
Right.
Is there anything that you know about that I haven't said yet?
Yes.
Go ahead.
In the hospital when my grandmother was dying, my husband, my mother, my uncle Bill, and her other son, and my mother, the executor on the second will, she was telling us that her phone book, bank receipts, her will, stuff for her funeral, everything was in her briefcase. We found everything except for her will, which then in her phone book, in 2 different spots, it is noted, Opendahl, the one that drew up the second will, is her attorney, has her will. That's how they found him. This is her phone book.
It says in that, attorney has will.
Has will.
Fine.
And I also have a letter from the attorney saying that he was the one that drew it up, and no, she never signed it, that it was her right to be able to take her copy with her, and it was up to her.
Ms. Cox, so then what I'm saying is accurate. Let's put this in order. We have a signed 1977 will, which you acknowledge does not make any bequest of this car to you. Were you born in 1977?
I was born in 76.
Okay, so you were a year old. She wouldn't have left you a car.
No.
Later, you both agree that your mother and your grandmother had the intention of changing her will to leave you the car, but she never fully executed the will, which means she did not have it signed and witnessed. That's according to you, madam, because you just told me that in her papers, in her book, it says attorney has the will. And if this is the will that you got from the attorney, it is unsigned, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So here we have the problem.
This is a copy of the will from 1977.
I'll take a look at it. Mr. Tagliavore,
That's where
listen
I got
to me.
the address.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you were very honest with me a moment ago. I assume that you love your mother and you know in your heart that she may have not been good at executing this 1992 will, but that was her intention, that your niece have this car.
My mother spoke to me in '96 in November.
Who are you?
I'm her daughter also. She called me in Kentucky, was calling me, and I brought up my will. She brought up her will. Nothing was ever mentioned. She said, I have 6 kids. If there should be anything left, we divide it equally. Nothing was ever mentioned once. Wendy didn't know. None of us kids knew that this other will existed. Mom never mentioned to not a one of us.
Fine, but it does exist.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I didn't care if I lost the car or not. It was
Come
a
on,
simple.
Wendy, come
you don't
on.
know. You do not know,
I know.
Joy.
You
no,
put
you
us
do not
through
know.
hell.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Wendy Cox says her grandmother promised she could have her Ford Thunderbird after she died. But Wendy's uncle, Joseph Tagliavore, claims his mother's will says all of her possessions are to be divided between him and his siblings.
How much property did your mother leave?
The automobile was it, basically.
If you went to sell, sir, a 1991 Thunderbird, how much do you think you could get for it?
5,000 maybe.
Maybe.
6, maybe. Depending on what kind of shape it was in.
Okay, well, what kind of shape is it in?
It's in very good shape.
Okay,
Low
so let's say,
mileage.
and there are 5 kids?
6.
6 kids. So let's make it easy for this old judge, because I'm not real good in math, as Bird can tell you. So let's say you can sell the car for $6,000. So everybody gets $1,000, right?
Right.
The laws in every jurisdiction require a will to be executed in a certain fashion. So we're talking here about a situation where the law, Ms. Cox, in this and practically every jurisdiction in this country requires that a will and any subsequent change of the will be signed and witnessed. Correct? On the other hand, we're talking about whatever is morally right with regard to this car. I believe that you two people know that it was your mother's intention for her granddaughter to have this car, for whatever reasons. I'm sure she has a lot of other grandchildren, but that's what she intended, for this car to go to this grandchild.
Well,
We're not talking about a lot of money here, Mr. Tagliavore. We're talking about at most $6,000 or $1,000 per person who would tend to inherit the money. So maybe we can come up with some way of being fair to your mother's wishes and also being fair to you, consistent with this will, which is unsigned.
Your Honor, I also have a letter from that attorney
So what? I don't need the attorney. They don't dispute that. Ms. Cox, relax.
Okay, but...
Relax. They don't dispute
no,
that this...
I was just wondering if that would be... I know it's not signed. I'm just wondering if he
No,
can't
I
be a
don't read
witness,
letters
can
from
he?
attorneys. If you want a witness here, you have to have a witness here. Okay. What I started to say to you is perhaps we can come up with something that is fair, reasonably fair to each side. Would it be fair for Ms. Cox to have use of this car until she decides to sell it, and when she decides to sell it, the proceeds of the sale of that car are distributed among the 6 of you? So that in some way, the last wishes of your mother would be honored. Would that be reasonable?
I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Well, I'm telling you, sir.
You don't understand the whole story, I don't believe.
Well, I'll listen to the whole story.
This started years ago when my mother first told me. She told me, you make sure that you take care of your brother James, which is on that will.
In 1977?
Long before then. But if anything happened to her, she said, you make sure that he gets his share of whatever is left because he will not take care of it himself. The money would mean a lot to him. It doesn't mean anything to me. My sister, nobody else in the family, you know, $1,000, like you say, is not much money.
So what's James's problem?
He's like one step from homeless, pretty much.
Is there something physically wrong with him, or does he have an alcohol or a drug problem?
No, he's partially disabled. He lives on state aid and stuff like that.
So he has money from Social Security disability.
Right. Which is not much.
I understand that.
$1,000 to him is a lot of money. And this is a promise I made to my mother. And then when this thing all started, as far as I was concerned, I thought my sister was supposed to be executor of this will, and this was all taken care of. She comes after my mother passes away. All the children come to my house. They say, we want you to take care of this. I told Mom in 1995 I wanted to be taken off as executor of the will. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. This was all news to me. So I agreed to do it. Then we started searching and finding stuff. Now this has turned into a total nightmare, and I'm the bad guy when the only thing I say there that is legally binding is that I have to do what the signed will says to do. Now this is all the argument. This is all the bull that I have got from my family.
Sure, because
for doing what I was told to do by the law and asked to do by my siblings.
Well, you're right, Mr. Taglavor. You, unfortunately, are placed in that responsibility because it's not just you, but you have 5 siblings that you have to deal with, too.
Right, and my sister Paula says there's another will that leaves her the car, an orthographic will that she cannot find witnesses to. There's wills floating all over this place. But
listen,
none of them are signed
there are a lot of wills, but no property.
Right.
You know, a lot of wills, but one old Thunderbird.
And there's nothing but a car.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I did not want to sue him.
Sure you did, Wendy.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
You don't know me, Joy. You do not know me. This was the man I thought was my grandfather,
I've seen your
okay?
action.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Wendy Cox is suing her uncle, Joseph Taglavor, over her grandmother's will.
So I would assume that you cannot speak for your whole family.
Oh, no,
absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. What do you want to say?
It's funny that Mother never said anything to anybody, not even to Wendy or Debbie. Nothing was said till after the funeral. I mean, she didn't say anything.
No. Just a second. Who didn't say anything?
Wendy didn't say nothing. Debbie didn't say nothing. Mom never said nothing.
Listen
that she
to
wanted
me,
Wendy to have the car.
Listen to me, madam.
And I talked to her.
Listen to me.
Okay. I guess it doesn't matter. Whatever you want.
It doesn't. Let me tell you why it doesn't matter.
It upsets me.
Let me tell you why it doesn't matter. Very often when somebody is ill, or even before they're ill, when they are distributing their property by way of a will, and they don't want to create bad feeling while they're alive. They don't want one child to be angry with them, or another child or a grandchild to be angry with them. They won't discuss what they're leaving in their will because they figure, when I'm dead, it don't make any difference. So they will not tell their children. Do you have children? Mm-hmm. You have children. Would you have felt badly when you spoke to your mother if your mother said to you, I'm leaving Wendy my only possession, my car? you would have been annoyed with your mother.
I wouldn't.
Sure you would have. And your kids and your children would have been annoyed. Why is Grandma just leaving? Is she the favorite? Why is Grandma just leaving Wendy the car and I don't get anything? Does that sound possible to you?
Well, if it's, yes, possible, but if it was her wishes. Mom wasn't shy.
You don't, it's not a question of being shy. It's a question of not having your kids or your grandchildren annoyed with you while you're here to experience the feeling. Once you're gone, you're gone. Ms. Cox, you understand you have a problem.
Yeah.
And your problem is that even under the common law, which forms the basis of every law of every jurisdiction, a last will and testament was required to have some sort of a writing, at least signed by the, we call them the testator or the testatrix. That means the deceased. The only signed will that exists here that I see is one that was made in 1977. It doesn't make any mention of a car to you. Your uncle is not a bad guy. If he did anything else with this car, but do what it says to do in the original will, which is dispose of all my property equally among my children, he could be sued by the other siblings for a violation of his duties as executor of the will.
Thank you.
Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's unreasonable. That's unreasonable. I can't permit that to happen. My sense is he would like to do the right thing. But unless all of the siblings together say, you can turn the car over to Wendy because that's what Mom wanted, he can't do that. You understand? What I think is too bad is that if all the siblings understand that this was Mom's request, and all we're talking about really is $1,000 that you were concerned about for James, because that would mean a lot to him, well, maybe Wendy here would say, I'll give James $1,000, give me the car.
My mother, the executor on the second will, which my uncle is not even in.
There's no second will.
No, but
Wendy,
I know. Okay,
there's no second will.
All right, but my mom did agree to do that. My mom was willing to give my Uncle James $1,000 to make sure he was taken care of because she loves her brother. It has nothing to do with the Thunderbird.
This is a very good lesson to everybody.
This is ridiculous.
It's a very good lesson to everybody. None of us feel that tomorrow is our last day, so we all tend to put off taking care of business, which keeps things orderly and organized in our lives and prevents this kind of thing happening to a family. Usually when these kinds of things happen within a family, when somebody dies, you're talking about a lot of money. It's absolutely outrageous to me that this is doing this to a family when you're talking about a car, which is the only asset that your mother had. So people who don't take care of their business by keeping abreast of what property they have and how they want to dispose of it and making clear dispositions of that property before they die are not doing their families a favor.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Morally, Wendy, I believe that you are correct that your grandmother wanted you to have this car. Legally, you cannot establish that to me. Moreover, I honestly believe, after speaking to your uncle, that if he had his druthers, he would give you this car. If it was a question of, listen, either the car is mine or it's Wendy's, he would say, you can have the car. He is not in that position. He stands in what we call a fiduciary relationship to his other siblings. He represents them. Unless there is a unity of spirit in that, among those 6 siblings, unless all of them say, give Wendy the car, despite the fact that that's not what your signed will says, he can be sued by them, and it ends up costing him $5,000 or $6,000, probably more with attorney's fees, because he'd have to hire an attorney to defend himself, and you would maybe get the car. So don't blame him. It's not his fault. It's really, unfortunately, your grandmother's fault, because she did not take care of business when she could have in 1992 by signing this will and having a fully executed copy. So this lawsuit is dismissed. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. And out the back door to your right, please. Step forward, please.
45-year-old Thomas Lowe says he met his 23-year-old Filipino wife, Arlene Rowe, when he answered an ad in an international dating magazine. Thomas says when his new bride came to live with him in the United States, she charged a fortune in long-distance phone calls back to the Philippines. The marriage ended in divorce, and now he wants her to pay the phone bill.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is number 173 on the calendar in the matter of Lowe versus Lowe. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
This is your former wife.
Yes.
And while usually the background of a couple's courtship, etc., is usually not germane to the issues of the case, I think that in this case it is. How did you meet your wife, sir?
Through correspondence. A friend of mine told me that about it. He had met a wife overseas, and I tried it myself, and I wrote to Arlene, and she wrote back to me.
How did you get her name to write to her?
It was through a magazine that this gentleman informed me of. His name was Cherry Blossoms, and I wrote to her there, several other ladies too.
Did you advertise in this magazine?
My friend advertised me in there.
Your friend advertised for you? Okay. So you began to correspond, and then what happened?
She said she was about to go overseas to take a job, and at that particular time we had been corresponding for a year. And
Where was she living at the time?
In the Philippines. And I told her I was going to come to see her and not to go, that I asked her to marry me, and she agreed.
This was before you met her?
We had been corresponding. I told her I was going to go see her,
But before you met her, you told her that you wanted to marry her?
Yes, and that's why I was going to the Philippines to see her.
You wanted to marry him?
Yeah, but before he told me about that, I supposed to have like my visa is already ready. Then I told him I have to go because I have my responsibility for my sister. So he told me, and he called to my mom, and he talked to my dad. Then he told to my dad that tell him not to go. I will be responsible for all his responsibility.
For all of your
Yeah, my visa
expenses.
is ready already. Then he told me to not to go.
How old are you?
I'm 23 right now.
How old are you?
45.
How old was she when you began this correspondence, Mr. Lowe?
I do believe she was 20.
Didn't you think she was a little young for you?
Oh, yes, I wrote and told her so. And she wrote back and told me no, she wasn't.
Well, you should have been older and wiser, sir.
Yes.
Because the thrust of your complaint is that while you're divorced now, she ran up phone bills in the amount of $3,400 to her mother.
Yes.
But he used my mom. Before that, he told to my mom and my sister because he's working with him.
You mean your family was working with him?
Yeah, they're working with him.
What kind
so
of
that's
work?
Why, because they have a correspondence. We have correspondence businesses. Then, my mom was the one who's handling his business in the Philippines.
What kind of business?
It's like correspondence services.
Correspondence services?
Yes,
what
ma'am.
kind of correspondence services?
It's called Romance International.
What?
It's called Romance International. I developed my own service and run it on the internet.
Romance International?
Yes, run it on the internet. But, Your Honor, I did not call them for that. I sent them the pamphlets and everything in the mail.
But he told me it's okay to call to my mom. And you accept, not only my mom, you accept the collect calls from your agent that I talk to them.
Miss Lowe, did you talk to your mother a lot?
Yeah, I talked to my mom.
Did you talk to her for a long time?
No.
When you would call her or when she would call you collect to talk to you, just stay on the phone for a half hour? sometimes longer?
Yeah. If I talk to him, if I talk to my mom, he talked to...
But mostly you talk to her?
Yes.
What happened when you started to get these big phone bills? Did he complain?
Yeah, he told me, but I paid for the phone bill when I started working. Then he told me I didn't pay for it. The first salary that I got from here, I pay for his phone bill. But he don't give me any money.
Mr. Lowe.
Yes.
What makes you think that I should order her to pay you money for this phone bill?
Well, first of all, Your Honor, she agreed when I was first initially going to take the phone out to pay for just the international phone calls. I didn't ask her to pay for anything else, just her phone calls and calls she made to the psychic for $195. That was all she was supposed to pay for. I gave her money every week, which I have records of, that went to the bank, which was taken out in the Philippines. So money was given to them every week for her responsibility, even when I was not married to her. When she agreed to marry me, I took care of her responsibilities in the Philippines. But in order to keep the phone on, she promised to pay just the international phone bills. That's all I asked. She never had to pay any other bills at the house.
Okay, so she didn't. So you got a divorce?
Yes. Well, no, the problem with the divorce was I wanted to move to Brentwood, and mother told her no, she couldn't move to Brentwood with me, and she had to work her $4.25 an hour job. I was trying to get her a job paying $12 an hour, $15 an hour. I was ready to send her to school. I had taken out a $28,000 loan to take her to school, and the mother told her she couldn't go to school. She had to work.
No, my mom didn't told that. You want me to send to school. Then, like, when they interview me, then they told me I have to study like three years to pay $38,000. But you told them that, okay, after you finish your school, you're gonna pay me. I have to pay that for the rest of my life for $38,000.
So what you did you tell her that she was going to have to pay back the tuition?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Lowe.
The whole thing was I would have taken out the loan for the thing, and I was very willing to do that.
Mr. Lowe, you married a baby.
Your Honor, when I first married her, she did not strike me as a baby.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm trying to be good in sex, but it takes time.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Arlene Rose says when she came from the Philippines to marry Thomas, a man she met by placing an ad in a dating magazine, he treated her horribly and quickly divorced her. Now he's suing her for long-distance phone calls she made to her family.
In my untrained eyes, sir, this looks like a May-December romance.
Yes.
Did you ever hear that expression?
Yes.
And sometimes men marry women and they're very extravagant. They go out and they spend all their husband's money on jewelry and furs and manicures and pedicures and hats. Do women still buy hats? No.
Yeah. They do.
Your child bride called her mother a lot.
No, her mother called her.
Or her mother called her a lot. Because she evidently needed to talk to her family, very far away from her family. That's what happens when you marry somebody who's very young.
No, Your Honor, the reason they called was because her family kept getting into financial problems.
But you know that. You already know all my responsibilities.
Listen, Miss Lowe, I gather from your answer that you feel as if you have a very strong responsibility to family, even your family in the Philippines. What's supposed to happen when you get married is you're not supposed to necessarily lose that allegiance to your family, but you and your husband create your own unit. You have a mother in the Philippines, you have a father in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Yes? You have sisters?
Yes.
You have brothers?
Yes.
They're supposed to take care of themselves. That's not his responsibility.
Yeah, he told me that's not his responsibility.
It's not. And it's not your responsibility. You're a baby, 20 years old. You got a mother, your father, brothers, sisters, everybody else in the Philippines. All of a sudden, because you got married, you married somebody who maybe had an extra couple of bucks, that doesn't make Your family in the Philippines, your financial responsibility. When you're married, this is your financial responsibility, but you're not married anymore. I'm just telling you that for the future, because otherwise you're going to be a very unhappy lady the next time you get married. You can't.
I didn't tell him to responsibility for my family. I told him I have to send my sister on school. So that's my responsibility.
Why do you have to send your sister to school?
Because I'm the second to the eldest.
And what about your mother and father?
They work a lot for my brothers and sisters. And like that time, my father are sick, so I have to go to work.
So
and
what
like
you're
he
telling
knows
me
all
is,
all of that.
So what you're telling me is that you had to work here and send money back to your family in the Philippines? Is that what you're telling me?
No. I came here as to his wife, to be his wife. I came here 6 months. I worked for him. In American Embassy, he told that even I came here, I still receive any salary from his business, but I don't get any single penny. He gave me $10, $20. The first time he gave me is $20. And the last one before we leave is he gave me only $10. And like he told me, I always stay in the house. I work for him, I work for his business. I only sleep for 4 hours to work in his business. Then like, I don't get anything. I clean the house, I do everything. And like I told him, he have 1 week salary for $1,000 or $2,000. Then I work for 2 weeks to $200, $300. But I give him all my first salary. So I told him, did I ask you any money from your salary? I didn't even touch your money. Even we have joint account.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Arlene Rose says when she came from the Philippines to marry Thomas, a man she met by placing an ad in a dating magazine, he treated her horribly and quickly divorced her. Now he's suing her for long-distance phone calls she made to her family.
Mr. Lowe, you made a mistake.
Yes.
I believe that your former wife probably made a mistake. Is it your intention to go back to the Philippines? Or are you going to stay here in the United States?
I have to move on to my life. That's all I want.
So what do you want to do? Where do you want to live?
I have to settle all my problem here.
What kind of problems do you have here, Miss Lowe? Other than this one. This one is I'm going to make a non-problem for you. What other problems do you have?
About the status I have.
You mean your visa status?
Yes, Mom.
Do you want to stay in the United States or do you want to go home to the Philippines?
I don't know if I can survive. Maybe I'll survive because I work for 2 jobs. I work 7 days.
You work 2 jobs now?
Yes, Mom.
You send money home to your family?
Sometimes. But I have to settle all my bills.
What other bills do you have?
I have to pay for my lawyer.
Which lawyer?
I have to pay for my car and my insurance.
What lawyer do you have to pay for?
For my case.
You mean for your immigration case?
Yes, Mom.
Are you okay financially, Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
You think
well, actually, no, Your Honor. I've got, from our marriage, we've got major bills. We've got about $24,000 in back debt.
For what?
Some of it, a lot of it is mine. Then there's $9,000 between the tax stuff that I put off to help her family when I gave her money to help her family, $3,000, and put off paying taxes that I was supposed to pay the taxes
That's
with.
your problem. That's your problem.
Yes.
Mr. Lowe. I don't think she was, except for her phone bills, I don't think she was a very expensive lady to keep. Right?
No, Your Honor. I paid her a salary every week, and the records show I was putting $180 to $200 a week for her to send back home, and I have records for that.
Did you send back that money home?
No, because he owed my mom's money. Because when he sent some money from me, he told me that's my allowance as his wife. But I spent that money on his business. I told him about that.
Mr. Lowe, who initiated the divorce proceedings here in California?
She left the house, so I tried to reconcile with her. I initiated the divorce proceedings.
You got it. See how fast he's a quick study. And did you have anything in the divorce proceedings about this $3,400 debt?
Yes, Your Honor.
And
She
what
agreed
was
to
that?
pay for it. It's
Where-
a marital agreement.
Do you have that in writing?
Yes.
Can I see it, please?
This is the one.
She has it.
Oh, jeez.
When he gave that papers, he already signed the papers. Then the one that he told that to sign it, and I bring it to my lawyer, the second agreement. Because he changed the agreement that it says $3,400 to pay for 30 days. Then he want me to sign that papers.
Just a second. Is there another paper?
Yeah, we have
Your Honor,
another.
because of the first, we had the first original marriage agreement, and it wasn't notarized. That's why I have to come here now. And because it wasn't notarized, I had to get a second agreement done. I took that to her job. She said she had to go see her lawyer again with that. She never came back with that. We were forced to use the first agreement.
Let me see your judgment of divorce, sir.
This one.
She has it.
I want to see if it refers to the settlement agreement. Oh.
The first agreement wasn't notarized, Your Honor. That's why they could not use that agreement in the court. That's why I had to come to small claims court, because it wasn't notarized before the first of the year.
But Mr. Lowe, you have to understand something, sir. I like to see the right thing happen at the end of a case, because that's what I think that's supposed to happen in court. And if you show me an agreement and you say it's incorporated in your judgment to divorce, I have no choice, and I've explained that to your wife. I have no choice but to give you your judgment for $3,400, even though I don't feel good about it. I don't think she's, I don't think she's stupid, but I think that she was vulnerable, certainly more vulnerable than you are. So I feel sort of badly about having to make a judgment against her for $3,400, considering that she works 2 jobs and trying to maintain herself and send money home for her sister to go to school. I mean, that's hard. But now I have an out.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
You say here, sir, we have no community assets or liabilities.
The second, yeah.
That's what it says here.
Community assets liability, yes.
That's what it says. You have no community assets or liabilities.
That was before, when we first signed that agreement, that was before all the taxes came. So that's when we tried to make the second agreement.
This is dated November 7th.
Yes.
This is dated in October.
Yes, I could not use the first one.
You can't use it?
That's because it wasn't notarized.
So it wasn't notarized, so what am I supposed to do?
That's why when I went to court, the judge said if I wanted to settle this, I had to then take her to small claims court.
Okay, so it's not part of the judgment of divorce, so I'm not bound by another court's ruling.
No,
that
you're
it's
not.
part of another. All right, then that's very easy. Mr. Lowe, your wife is 23 years old?
Yes, Mom.
You're 45 years old. You're a man of the world. She's not. She was extravagant in the way she made phone calls. You have money, not a lot, probably, but certainly more than she does.
Yes,
That be a fair statement? I'm not going to burden her with another debt of $3,400. This case is dismissed.
All right, excuse, you may step out.
Need equipment.
Double kill! Blood. Triple kill.